Welcome, ready to this JMC 2021 Minnesota Ed Fi Onboarding Q&A session. Glad to have you. My name is Paul Freed. I'm the lead trainer here at JMC. I've been guiding schools through this process of transitioning to the Minnesota Ed Fi onboarding process. I might be joined today by Eric Doyle. He's our head of tech support and helps with errors at the tech support side of the JMC process. As you know, if you've joined me for any of my Minnesota Ed Fi onboarding processes, the main step is to follow the directions, right? That's what you need to do. Follow the directions. That's the keys to success. I've started to start these Q&A sessions by going through the appendix of the 2021 Minnesota Ed Fi Onboarding PDF that's attached to this video in the YouTube, or any of our Minnesota Ed Fi videos will have this particular doc, because again, that's your pathway to success. That's your steps that you need to follow to complete the 4 stages to transition to the Minnesota Ed Fi onboarding process. So I'm going to quickly go through the most common errors you can see, and then I'll go through some Q&A time to see if people have some questions. So first, error type number 1, yikes, I received a 400 error. Typically, these are data communication errors. This means that your JMC database is not communicating with MDE. It could be that the internet's slow at the MDE side or the JMC side, wherever it is, doesn't matter. It's an easy fix. You just simply come in here and click the Minnesota Ed Fi Update Students by Grade Level button again to resubmit your data for this grade level. So you simply come in here to Minnesota Ed Fi Update Students by Grade Level. If I click this and I get a 400 error, you can click it again. If you get that error again, wait an hour, do it at the end of the day or the next morning. Maybe there's a lot of traffic on the MDE side, not sure, but that's an easy one. It just means that there's a little hiccup in the internet connection. Error type number 2, user, I'm starting to panic. I see a 403 error for the majority of my students on both my ports. No biggie. Your JMC school calendar is more than likely not set up correctly, right? Make sure you set up your calendar, folks. Helpful tip, review this video. You can click on that link right there. Enter the correct term dates as outlined in the Mars Fall submission instructions. Repeat steps 1 through 4 of updating students by grade level there. So if you get a 403 error, it's almost always, if not always, that your calendar is not set up. So make sure you get that calendar set up. Error type number 3, I'm getting this error. Student identifying information given does not match any students. All right, this occurs because the student's not yet in the MDE Ed Fi system yet. So your school has these new students that came in that are not in Ed Fi. They're not recorded there. You're the first school to send that in. What's the solution? Since the new students in your district are not in your staging environment, the MDE recommends ignoring these errors for now and addressing them when you move into the production environment. So if you get this error in your staging environment, something like student identifying information given does not match any students, you can just ignore that and keep on rolling. Those are the best kind of messages. Error type number 4, user, I'm getting an error about invalid characters in a student's name. Most likely there's a period in the student's middle name. Go to edit student data, remove the period from the student's middle name in the middle field. Error type number 5, I'm getting an error about missing or incorrect ancestry information. Most likely a field was left empty. So go to edit student data and click the race ethnicity tab to enter missing information for that student here. So view student data, come to race ethnicity, enter in any information that you have that's listed here. Error type number 6, I reported a student both Mars and Ed Fi that I shouldn't have reported at all. It's a simple fix that only takes a few steps to correct. Go to Minnesota Ed Fi, delete a student, find the student and delete them from the Ed Fi portal, then uncheck their Mars flag. So again, the kid didn't come to school, but you reported them. We'll go here to Minnesota Ed Fi, delete a student. We'll find out who that student is here, Andy Anderson. Don't have that one there. Send that in there. Whatever that kid is there, choose that student, click the Minnesota Ed Fi, delete a student, and then you'll come to the view student data screen and uncheck their Mars flag. You probably are going to uncheck all their flags there as well, because if the kid had never showed up to school for the current school year. But just so you know, in Minnesota now, if a kid drops for the summer, you're supposed to go in and drop the student in the last day in the previous school year. That's new, and I cover that in the Minnesota State reporting presentation as well. All right, so now I'm going to get to our specific session items right here. I'll go through the questions, and then people can ask any questions they want as they go, when we get to the end. So first, does anyone have any questions about creating and uploading Mars A and B files? Right, you want to make sure that you do that to start the process as we laid out. Then you'll upload your files to make a error-free Ed Fi submission. Once you've got an error-free Ed Fi submission, then you again will create and upload Mars A and B files So you have matching files in at the Department of Education, so you can do any comparison that you need to do there. So I'll wait just for a minute to see if anybody has any questions about this one. But this one's pretty straightforward. Again, we're always here to help you with those Mars A and B file errors if you have any. Our tech support line especially is really great at helping with those there as well. So, all right, here we go. Question number 2. Are there any questions about the process of using the MDE ESCT to generate your key and secret and then entering them into your Ed Fi settings page? If you have a question now, you sure can answer. While I'm waiting, I'll just show you again, right? You'll go to that ECST tool and get your key and secret. Then you'll go to File, Administrator Options, down here to Ed Fi Settings. And you'll put in your client key here, client secret here. And if you're in the staging environment, you would choose that staging and then click Save, and you're good to go. So really easy to be able to go in and manage that information there as well. All right. Let's get to our next question here then. Did anyone receive any errors during the start year steps that they were not able to resolve? So anything that when you were entering those start year steps there, you can type those questions in now. So let's just go to those start year steps and see if we jog anybody's memory. So under Minnesota, Ed Fi, start year, those steps are pretty easy. It's enter your new students in, update your lunch status, and put your calendar in, which we talked about as well. Then you'd come in here and you would update all of these tables here one at a time. It will tell you when it's done now, and I think it even has a date listed there, although I could be wrong because I haven't updated that information there. And then you can go ahead and just update those one at a time as well. I saw somebody raised your hand. If you have a question, go ahead and type them in the Q&A chat feature in your toolbar, and I will be able to then answer that particular question there. Then under the general here, this is where you update your calendar there as well. So, all right. Let's keep rolling. Is there any program or special education history records that you need guidance in updating? All right, we've got a question here, so people can continue to type their questions in now here. All right, for a freshwater district, I guess I'm not sure what update lunch status is. We don't do anything with that usually. Okay, great question. So you're a special ed district, so you probably are not serving free and reduced lunches to your students. So schools that served free and reduced or track free and reduced actually status. Let me just say that. So not just because you don't serve free and reduced lunch doesn't mean that you don't necessarily track free and reduced status. So what that's saying here is on the prep tab here, it says students' lunch status have been updated, including importing lunch status from the prior year. So schools will come in for their students and they'll go to lunch data setup to import free and reduced status from the prior year. We got to do that at the district. And that takes everybody's free and reduced status from the prior year and it imports it to the current school year. So I would guess almost every Minnesota school has done this at this point. But if you haven't, you still could. Being an educational district, you either aren't doing this, or I'm still guessing that you're probably recording free and reduced status. That's a total guess. I mean, you don't need to respond, but you sure can if you want to. But if you have a new set of students every year, which sometimes educational districts do, our ed districts, they'll actually go in and they won't import from one year to the next. They will just go in and they will set the students' lunch free and reduced status either on their edit student lunch data screen by managing their status here, or coming in to the free and reduced, determine free and reduced status there as well. So if you don't, if you don't need to import your free and reduced status this year, because you just don't need to, you're an educational district, then you can just ignore that, right? I would still check that box though, right? Because you're acknowledging, right, under that Minnesota Mars Minnesota Ed Fi start year, just acknowledging, hey, that I understand that some schools do this or that should be done or needs to be done by some schools, but your school does not need to do that. Again, we also have some new charter schools that don't participate in the free and reduced process. So they wouldn't necessarily check that. Or if they're a brand new school, they wouldn't check that as well. Or they wouldn't do the step, they would just go in and check that box. So great question. All right, is there any program or special education history records that you need guidance in updating? Again, on that view student data screen, those students that have records they'll be listed in yellow here to tell you this kid's got a program history record and this student has a special ed history record. You can come in, edit those to be as needed. What's the serving school here? What's the information that we have listed there? Can update that information there, and then simply click update. Doesn't like that because, again, I'm not a real school. So there we go. All right, topic number 5. Did anyone receive any messages or errors while updating grade level data they were not able to resolve? So when you come here to your Minnesota Ed Fi update students by grade level, when you update each grade level, that's where you'll get your error report that we talked about yesterday. You'll want to print that to a PDF and have that handy as you go through and you review which items were just imported, right? It means doesn't mean they need to be edited, but which items were imported and which ones need to be edited. So I'll wait just for a minute here, because usually if there's questions, they kind of come up during this one. And I do my best to answer, but I will have to see. Sometimes I have to pull in some folks that know a lot about these errors as well. All right, question came up. If we leave anything blank on the program hist or special ed history tabs, like placing district, for example, will it cause the records to not go through? No, I believe the records will still go through, but you might receive an error if a piece of information is missing. So, that I talked about that a little bit yesterday. When I look at this one here for like on the view student data screen, for example, and I go to program history for the student that's homeless, right? There's a field here that has an end date. Well, if the student is still homeless, right, there's not going to be an end date in there. So you would submit that record. They might give you a warning. I don't think they would give you an error in that situation. And that's more of an MDE side of things, but they would do that. And the same in the special ed history, right? There are certain items that you're going to enter in here. What's the begin date? What's the end date as a great example, right? If you don't know what the end date is for their special ed, then you wouldn't necessarily put that in there as well. And again, you're updating these records ongoing. So, there might not be any service hours when you first, put this record in, but they might accumulate as you go. So my answer is, I don't work for the MDE. I know I say that a lot, to say that's my way of saying like, hey, they might give you that you want to check with them, but I can't imagine that you'd have to have all these fields gone in, or they give you an error. But if you do not fill something out and you're supposed to fill it out, right, then you might get an error, and that's what the errors are there for. An example would be if you have a program history record and you have the economic indicator set here. Oh, it doesn't like this because I'm a demo database, so I'll just have to tell you here. If I don't have the economic indicator set here, it's going to give me a warning, right? Because the economic indicator needs to be set for students who are free or reduced. So great question there. All right. Any other questions at all? I think that what we're seeing now for schools is that a lot of schools are in the process, right? And they're in the thick of it, meaning that the people are kind of figuring out their own questions, updating, sending their grade level data in. So we're seeing a lot of success from schools on successful submission of data, moving through the process of the staging process into the production environment. So we're getting fewer and fewer questions at these Q&A sessions here. But if anybody has any questions, you can type them in. I'll hang on for another couple of minutes to see if people have any questions. But we appreciate you joining us. And as I say at all of our Ed Fi onboarding sessions, we want you to be successful. We are partners with you. Please, again, just let us know if you need some help with any of those errors. Follow the steps laid out in the document you have yesterday. I will definitely include that in the YouTube video description link as well. And then as you go through the process throughout the year, you'll want to do it once a month at least, and you'll want to make sure you follow everything in that stage 4, that production environment that we had in those presentation notes there, because that's the process that you'll follow. So I'll hang on for another minute, see if anybody has any questions. If they don't, I'll sign off. But I appreciate your time today, folks. Appreciate you joining. Thanks to Freshwater Ed District. They led the charge today with meetings. But I also want to do a special call out to Stacy. I saw you logged on, Stacy, that you led the charge yesterday, and Michelle, I think, as well, for the question askers. And I appreciate that, though, because I'm always learning things too about this Ed Fi transition, and the questions you have are questions that other people have as well. So keep up the good work with asking those questions. I don't think I have a Minnesota Ed Fi onboarding session next week. I think it's I know it's in 2 weeks. So we'll be back in 2 weeks, and you can join for the regular session or the Q&A session as well. So like I said, I'll hang on for a minute, see if anybody has any questions. If not, we'll sign off. So thanks, everybody, and have a great day.